Have you ever wondered what the future holds for you as you grow older? Will you be surrounded by family, loved ones, and support, or will you find yourself facing loneliness and regret? As we age, the decisions we make today can shape the quality of our later years in ways we may not expect. In this video, we're diving into the heartbreaking realities faced by many elderly people, and I'll reveal 9 types of individuals whose later years are filled with immense struggles. You'll learn how certain life choices, from family dynamics to financial planning, can lead to a miserable existence in old age. But don't worry. We'll also offer insights into how you can avoid these pitfalls and ensure that your twilight years are filled with comfort, dignity, and happiness. By watching until the end, you'll discover crucial lessons on what you can do now to avoid becoming one of these unfortunate elderly people, and how the power of family, wise decisions, and personal preparation can lead to a peaceful, fulfilling life as you grow older. So, if you're ready to take control of your future and ensure you age gracefully, make sure to stay with us until the very end. You won't want to miss the life-changing advice coming up. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. 1. Elderly people with unfilial children. There is no greater heartache in old age than having unfilial children. For an elderly person who has spent a lifetime nurturing, sacrificing, and giving their all to raise their children, it is devastating to find themselves abandoned in their twilight years. When illness strikes, the pain is not just physical but deeply emotional. The children, who once depended on their parents for everything, now shirk their responsibilities, turning a blind eye to the needs of their aging mother or father. The indifference stings like an open wound. These children fail to care for their sick parents, ignoring the cries for help that are sometimes unspoken but always felt. Worse still, in some heartbreaking cases, some children seem to wish for their parents to pass on quickly, viewing them as nothing more than burdens. Imagine the sorrow of an elderly person who realizes their existence is seen as a nuisance by the very people they once cradled in their arms. For these elderly individuals, life becomes a relentless cycle of loneliness, despair, and neglect. Their poor health only magnifies their suffering, as there is no loving hand to comfort them, no kind voice to reassure them. They are left to endure their final years in a state of profound misery, wondering how love could turn so cold. It's a cruel twist of fate that breaks the spirit of even the strongest hearts. As a society, we must reflect deeply on the values we instill in our children and the ways we care for our elders. No one deserves to spend their last days feeling unwanted or unloved. For those facing such dire circumstances, it's a reminder to seek solace in the kindness of others or to find strength in self-compassion, even when the ones they hope to depend on have failed them. This story of unfilial children serves as a powerful, emotional call for empathy and the need to treasure our aging loved ones. 2. Elderly people with poor health. Elderly people with poor health, especially those who are bedridden due to chronic illnesses, often endure a level of hardship that is difficult to put into words. Imagine being confined to a bed for years, sometimes even a decade or more, where every day feels like a repeat of the last, and there's no escape from the physical and emotional pain. Even when these individuals are cared for with unwavering love and meticulous attention by their children, the reality of their situation can be heartbreaking. For many, the bed becomes both a physical prison and a reminder of the life they can no longer live. The once simple joys of walking, cooking a meal, or even stepping outside to feel the sun on their skin are now distant memories. This prolonged state of dependency often feels like a cruel twist of fate. It's as if they are alive, but not truly living, a state some might describe as a living death. The emotional toll of this situation is profound, not just for the elderly themselves, who grapple with feelings of helplessness and despair, but also for their children, who are burdened with both the physical demands and the emotional weight of caregiving. From a deeply personal perspective, I believe this highlights one of the most challenging aspects of aging: the loss of independence and the way it reshapes relationships between parents and children. No parent wants to become a burden, and no child wants to see their loved one suffer. Yet, this painful reality plays out in countless families, often leaving a trail of exhaustion, guilt, and heartache. It's a situation that forces us to confront questions about dignity, quality of life, and the emotional complexities of love and responsibility. As heartbreaking as it is, it also serves as a reminder of the importance of maintaining health as much as possible in earlier years and of advocating for a compassionate healthcare system that prioritizes not just survival but also the dignity and well-being of the elderly. No one should have to spend their final years feeling like a shadow of who they once were, and no family should face this journey without support and understanding. 3. Elderly people without pensions or savings. In the twilight years of life, the absence of a pension or personal savings can be an overwhelming burden for the elderly, forcing them into a position of dependency they never anticipated. Imagine the heartbreak of reaching a stage in life where, instead of enjoying peace and dignity, one must regularly ask their children for financial support. Each request feels like a tiny wound to their pride, a reminder of their vulnerability. It's not just a transaction, it's a deeply emotional exchange. For the elderly, every time they need to ask for money, they wrestle with feelings of shame, helplessness, and regret. They may recall the years they worked hard to provide for their children, sacrificing so much to ensure their success. And yet, now, they find themselves hesitating before making that phone call or asking that question, knowing full well they might be met with frustration, reluctance, or even subtle disdain. The thought of being a financial burden weighs heavily on their hearts. How could it not? It goes against every instinct of a parent who once prided themselves on their independence and ability to give. The sense of embarrassment is almost palpable, like a shadow following them every day. What's even more painful is the possibility that the relationship with their children could sour over these financial strains, replacing what should be a time of mutual love and respect with tension and resentment. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. It's heartbreaking to think about how many elderly people feel trapped in this cycle, caught between their genuine need for assistance and their deep desire to preserve their dignity. In my opinion, this is a tragedy of our times, and it serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of financial planning and independence in earlier years. No one deserves to feel like a burden, especially during a time in their life when they should be enjoying the fruits of their labor and the love of their family without guilt or shame. This situation isn't just uncomfortable, it's deeply soul-crushing for those who endure it. It's a stark reflection of the silent struggles so many face in old age, and as a society, we must do more to protect the dignity and well-being of our elders. 4. Elderly people without their own independent housing. Many elderly individuals believe that living with their children in old age is a natural and comforting arrangement. However, this idealistic notion often crumbles under the weight of reality. No matter how filial the children may seem, living together long-term can create friction. Daily routines clash, unspoken expectations arise, and even the closest family ties can strain under the pressures of shared spaces. The situation becomes even more dire for elderly parents in rural areas who, out of love and trust, hand over their homes to their children too early. They often find themselves homeless in their golden years, shuffling from one child's house to another, month after month. Imagine the emotional toll of such a rootless existence. Packing your belongings into a small bag, saying goodbyes every few weeks, and learning to adapt to each household's rules and rhythms. The once comfortable role of a parent turns into that of a guest, often overstaying their welcome. Even when children appear generous, providing food and shelter, the elderly living under such arrangements are often silently suffering. Moving from one son's house this month to another's the next may seem like an act of familial unity on the surface, but deep down, it creates an aching sense of displacement and insecurity. How can one truly rest when living under someone else's roof, even if it belongs to their child? There's an unspoken power dynamic that comes into play, making these parents cautious in their words and actions, afraid to upset the fragile balance. The comfort and freedom that should come with aging are replaced by feelings of being a burden. This, to me, is profoundly heartbreaking. No one should have to endure such an uprooted and dependent life in their later years. It's a stark reminder of the importance of maintaining one's independence for as long as possible. A house isn't just bricks and mortar. It's a sanctuary, a symbol of stability and dignity. Without it, the elderly are left vulnerable, not just physically but emotionally. This lesson is a wake-up call. Never give up your independence too early, no matter how much you love and trust your children. It's not selfish. It's about ensuring you live your later years with peace, dignity, and the comfort you deserve. 5. Elderly people who never married or had children. There are some elderly individuals who, for various reasons, choose a life without marriage or children. They lived independently, pursuing their passions and careers, often free from the responsibilities that come with family life. However, as they age and their health begins to decline, the weight of their solitude becomes heavier. Imagine lying in bed, unable to move, and realizing there isn't a single familiar face to bring you a comforting cup of tea or sit beside you during moments of pain or despair. Even for those who are financially stable and live in a nursing home, the absence of children or close family can lead to heartbreaking vulnerability. Money can provide comfort but cannot always buy kindness or genuine care. Caregivers, overwhelmed by their workload, may overlook their needs, and sadly, some elderly individuals may face mistreatment or even bullying by others in the same facility. Without the solid support of a family, someone who fiercely advocates for them and protects their dignity, they often endure these struggles alone, unseen and unheard. This reality stirs a deep sadness. It makes one wonder, was their choice of independence worth the price of loneliness in old age? Or is this a reminder for all of us to cherish the connections we have and nurture relationships that can offer love and security when we need them most? Life is unpredictable, and the thought of growing old without someone to lean on is a sobering and emotional reminder of how interconnected our lives truly are. 6. Elderly people with children who have no prospects. It's a heartbreaking reality for elderly parents to witness their children struggling without direction, skills, or ambition. When adult children lounge at home all day, without the drive to earn a living or the determination to improve themselves, it becomes an unbearable weight on the parents' hearts. Imagine pouring decades of love, care, and sacrifice into raising children, only to watch them remain stagnant, relying solely on their parents for food, shelter, and even their future. For the elderly, this situation is not just financially draining but emotionally devastating. No matter how much money parents have saved for their golden years, if their children continuously depend on them without contributing back, the financial burden becomes unsustainable. The thought of one's hard-earned savings depleting, leaving the family vulnerable in times of crisis, is enough to rob the elderly of peace and joy. Worse yet, this dependency can strip parents of their dignity and independence, forcing them into roles they thought they had left behind long ago. In my opinion, there's an even deeper sorrow here, a sense of failure. Parents may ask themselves, did I not teach them well enough? Where did I go wrong? These questions can linger in their minds, creating a storm of guilt, frustration, and helplessness. And yet, the truth remains that children are responsible for their paths. Parents can provide love and guidance, but they cannot live their children's lives for them. This issue isn't just about money, it's about the emotional toll it takes. The elderly deserve to spend their later years with a sense of pride in their children and the freedom to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Instead, they find themselves trapped, sacrificing their well-being for children who refuse to stand on their own. It's a cruel twist of fate that, in trying to protect and support their children, they often end up jeopardizing their happiness and security. For the sake of both generations, children must learn to take responsibility, while parents must find the strength to let go when necessary, no matter how hard it may be. 7. Elderly people with a lifetime of poor conduct. There are some elderly individuals whose past behaviors cast long shadows over their twilight years. Throughout their youth and adulthood, they may have indulged in habits that harmed not just themselves but also those closest to them. Smoking and drinking excessively, gambling recklessly, harboring selfish tendencies, or displaying volatile tempers often left deep scars on their relationships. Some were abusive toward their spouses, while others neglected the very families they were meant to nurture and protect. These actions may have seemed small or justified at the moment, but over time, they created walls of resentment and bitterness that grew insurmountable. Now, in old age, these individuals often find themselves alone. The wounds they inflicted on their loved ones cannot easily be forgiven, and the people who once shared their lives, spouses, children, and even friends, begin to pull away. While they may yearn for closeness, the echoes of their past mistakes often drown out any attempts at reconciliation. It's heartbreaking to imagine such loneliness, especially when it could have been avoided. In my opinion, this is a painful reminder of how vital it is to live with kindness, respect, and empathy. Old age is a time when we should be able to lean on the warmth of the bonds we've built over a lifetime. But those who have lived selfishly, without regard for the feelings or needs of others, often find their old age cold and isolating, a reflection of the emotional debts they failed to repay. Life gives us countless opportunities to choose love over anger, generosity over selfishness, and understanding over judgment. For those who squander these chances, the price is paid in loneliness and regret. It's a powerful, albeit somber, lesson that reminds us all to be mindful of the legacy we are creating with every action we take. As I reflect on this, it's clear to me that no one deserves to spend their final years entirely alone. But the reality is that actions have consequences, and time, unfortunately, does not heal all wounds. 8. Elderly people who gave all their savings to their children. Many parents, driven by their deep love and unwavering sense of responsibility, will not think twice before emptying their hard-earned savings to support their children in times of struggle. They see their children's hardships, whether it be financial instability, a family crisis, or unexpected challenges, and their hearts ache with a desire to help. With trembling hands and teary eyes, they hand over what took them decades to accumulate, believing that their sacrifice will ease their children's burden and bring them happiness. But while this gesture is undeniably rooted in love, it can also be the beginning of profound heartache and regret. By giving away all their savings, these parents often leave themselves vulnerable, dependent, and stripped of financial security in their later years. Imagine the quiet despair of an elderly parent who realizes they have no safety net for emergencies or their basic needs. Even worse, some children, despite their parents' immense generosity, might fail to reciprocate with the same care and respect in return. This situation leaves an emotional scar, a blend of sadness, disappointment, and betrayal. As much as it shows the depth of parental love, it's a reminder that love must also be accompanied by wisdom. Parents must recognize that while helping their children is noble, preserving their independence and dignity in old age is equally important. After all, it's impossible to pour from an empty cup. For both parents and children, finding a balance between love and practicality is the key to maintaining harmony and mutual respect. 9. Elderly people whose children live far away. In today's fast-paced world, countless elderly people find themselves living in rural areas, far removed from their children, who have migrated to bustling cities in search of better opportunities. For many, the reality of seeing their children only once or twice a year, or not at all, is a heartbreaking truth. Some children have even moved abroad, creating a chasm of distance that years cannot easily bridge. These parents, once the cornerstones of their families, now face the agony of separation, longing for the warmth of their children's presence, yet enduring years of silence and solitude. For these seniors, the pain of physical distance transforms into emotional isolation. In the most tragic cases, their passing may go unnoticed for days, weeks, or even longer, leaving behind a haunting story of loneliness that no one should have to bear. The twilight years of life are not solely shaped by how much one has accumulated in youth or the plans made for retirement. They are deeply intertwined with the love and care of family and the broader support of society. Elderly people who find themselves in the most sorrowful situations often lack not just financial security or good health, but also the comfort of nearby loved ones. The combination of these factors creates a void that nothing material can fill. Imagine the emptiness of growing old without the joy of shared meals, the sound of laughter echoing through a home, or the reassuring touch of a child's hand. Each of us is marching toward our old age, and the question of how to avoid such a desolate existence looms large. The heartbreaking truth is that as society evolves, so do the ideals of younger generations. The notion that children are a guarantee of care in old age is increasingly seen as a relic of the past. Modern mindsets, influenced by movements like the DINK, dual income, no kids, lifestyle, emphasize personal freedom and independence over traditional family structures. For many young people, life is about exploring one's potential and embracing individuality, not necessarily continuing a family line or preparing to care for elderly parents. They argue that with hard work, careful planning, and enough financial resources, a comfortable retirement in a well-managed nursing home can be achieved. But can the bonds of blood and love truly be replaced by professional care, no matter how luxurious or attentive? If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. The story of 73-year-old Mr. Gua offers a sobering answer. A childless man, he once believed he had life figured out. With a successful career, financial stability, and a loving partner by his side, he thought he was immune to the struggles of aging alone. But 2 years ago, his partner passed away, and he moved into a nursing home, a decision he initially believed was the right one. Within 6 months, however, the walls of the nursing home began to close in on him, not because the staff was unkind or the facilities inadequate, but because of a deeper, unshakable regret. "I thought I didn't need children," he now confesses, his voice heavy with emotion. "But I've realized that in this life, having children is not just about tradition or responsibility. It's about connection, about having someone who cares about you not because it's their job, but because you are a part of them." This story is not meant to devalue modern choices or diminish the beauty of independence. Instead, it serves as a poignant reminder that no amount of money, success, or external comfort can fully replace the love of family. As we age, we must not only think about how to take care of ourselves, but also reflect on the importance of creating and nurturing bonds, whether through children, friends, or community. And while we pursue our paths, let us not forget the elderly around us who may be living quietly in pain, yearning for connection. A simple act of kindness or a moment of understanding can bring warmth to hearts that have grown cold from neglect. Ultimately, the question remains: can we truly find peace and fulfillment in our final years without the love of those who hold a piece of our hearts? Perhaps it's worth pondering this deeply before time decides for us. Here is Mr. Gua's story. At 73 years old, I often find myself reflecting on the journey of my life, a story shaped by both the choices I made and the unpredictable turns of fate. I was born into what many considered a wealthy family in a county town, blessed with parents who worked hard to provide for me and my 4 siblings. My eldest sister, 2 younger brothers, and a younger sister. As the second child, I always carried a sense of pride and responsibility, especially as I grew to be the most academically promising among us. My grades in school consistently outshone my siblings, and I was seen as the one destined for greatness. Teachers praised me, neighbors spoke highly of me, and my parents pinned their hopes on my future. But life, as I would come to learn, has its plans, often beyond our control. In those tumultuous years of my youth, the suspension of college entrance exams dashed my dreams of higher education. I was sent to the countryside as an educated youth, a government program that uprooted my life and sent me far from home. For 8 long years, I toiled in the countryside, learning to endure hardship and loneliness. When I finally returned to the city in 1977, I was already 26, a young man with big dreams but little time left to achieve them. It was during those years in the countryside that I met the woman who would become my wife. We were both filled with youthful ambition, and we bonded over our shared dream of one day attending college. After we registered our marriage, we made a pact. We would support each other in taking the newly reinstated college entrance exams, no matter what anyone said. This decision was not without its challenges. My traditional parents strongly opposed our choice, urging us to have children instead. My mother argued that my wife should stay home and focus on raising a family while I pursued education. But I stood firm, determined to honor the promise I made to my wife. I wanted us to share the journey as equals. Our efforts paid off. In the first year of the resumed exams, both of us were admitted to the same university. It was a victory that felt like a reward for our persistence and unity. Yet, our married life during those years was anything but traditional. We buried ourselves in our studies, delaying the thought of children, and after graduation, we found ourselves caught up in fulfilling careers. The idea of having children began to fade, replaced by a shared love for our child-free lifestyle. We reveled in the freedom of being just the two of us, living like young lovers even after years of marriage. We had time to travel, pursue hobbies, and build a life that felt uniquely ours. Looking back, I often marveled at how unconventional we were, especially in an era when most couples were busy raising families. People around us couldn't understand our choice. They warned us about the dangers of old age without children to rely on. But I dismissed their concerns. With stable jobs, a house, savings, and a pension, I believed we could live comfortably without the need for children. My wife and I were free spirits, and the thought of sacrificing our freedom to care for a child didn't appeal to us. For nearly 4 decades, we thrived in this arrangement, living a life that many envied. We traveled the world, explored new cultures, and cherished the companionship of one another. It was a life of joy, freedom, and fulfillment. But as the years passed, the reality of aging began to cast a shadow on our carefree existence. When my wife turned 66, she was diagnosed with severe heart disease, a cruel twist of fate that neither of us had anticipated. We sought the best medical care, traveling to countless hospitals and consulting with renowned doctors. Despite the treatments, her condition worsened. Watching the woman I loved deteriorate before my eyes was a kind of pain I could not put into words. For 4 long years, I did everything in my power to care for her. We hired caregivers, but the burden of her illness was one I carried deeply in my heart. When she passed away at 71, my world crumbled. The house we had shared felt unbearably empty, and the silence was deafening. I thought moving into a nursing home would bring me comfort, a place where I could find companionship and care in my old age. At first, it seemed like a good decision. The facilities were modern, the food was decent, and there were activities to keep me occupied. But the illusion of comfort quickly faded. The restrictions of the nursing home became glaringly apparent. Leaving the premises required permission from a guardian, which for me was my nephew, as I had no children. It was humiliating to realize that even my freedom to come and go depended on the goodwill of someone else. Now, at 73, I find myself grappling with the consequences of my choices. I don't regret the life I shared with my wife. It was a life full of love, adventure, and freedom. But I've come to understand the complexities of aging, especially without the support system that children might have provided. It's a bittersweet reflection, filled with gratitude for the life I lived, but also with a quiet acknowledgement of the struggles I now face. Secondly, I couldn't help but notice the stark discrimination between elderly residents who had children visiting them and those who didn't. At first, everything seemed fine. The elderly residents got along well, and the caregivers appeared kind and attentive to everyone. It felt like a community where we could all age with some semblance of dignity. But as time passed, the differences began to surface. Once it became known that I was child-free and only had a distant guardian, the atmosphere around me shifted subtly but unmistakably. Suddenly, the elderly residents with children who visited them often or took them home for holidays were treated like royalty. They were praised, celebrated, and even envied for their family's attention and love. Meanwhile, Those of us without visiting children felt the sting of being overlooked. In casual conversations, comparisons, and even boasting about children became the norm. Those with children would proudly recount the gifts their children brought, the outings they enjoyed, or how their grandchildren adored them. For the rest of us, those without children, it wasn't just hurtful. It was deeply isolating. It was as if we were being told, indirectly but undeniably, that we were worth less. And in the quieter moments, I could feel the unspoken judgment. Why didn't you have children? Didn't you think about your future? The bullying, though subtle, was real. Many residents with children leaned on their familial ties to assert dominance, whether intentionally or not. I experienced this firsthand and found myself questioning my life choices more than once. But what hurt even more was the preferential treatment by the caregivers. They were noticeably warmer and more attentive to those with regular visitors, sometimes even going above and beyond for them. For people like me, with no one coming to check on us, their care was often mechanical and perfunctory. It wasn't uncommon to hear whispers about tips or favors exchanged to secure better treatment. In such an environment, money and connections seemed to matter more than basic kindness. Then there was the overall atmosphere of the nursing home. At first glance, the facilities were immaculate, and there seemed to be plenty of activities to keep us engaged. But no amount of entertainment or clean surroundings could mask the underlying gloom. The routine felt like an endless loop, waking up in the same room, seeing the same faces, and rarely stepping outside the confines of those walls. There was a heavy sense of stagnation, as if time itself had stopped. And the hardest part was the ever-present shadow of mortality. Within my 6-month stay, I witnessed 3 residents pass away. The silence that followed their absence was haunting, a chilling reminder that this could be any of us next. It wasn't just sad, it was terrifying. Eventually, I could no longer endure it. The combination of emotional neglect, the unrelenting monotony, and the fear of dying alone in such a place wore me down. After 6 months, I decided to leave and return to my own home. It wasn't an easy choice, but it felt like reclaiming a part of myself that the nursing home had stripped away. This experience left me with a heavy heart and profound regret. I began to see my decision to live a child-free life in a new, painful light. For most of my life, being without children had felt freeing. There was no one to depend on me, no sacrifices to make, no expectations to fulfill. But as I grew older, I realized that this so-called freedom came with an unexpected cost. The loneliness that creeps in, the lack of someone to lean on in moments of vulnerability, is a pain that is hard to describe until you've lived it. If I could go back in time, I would have at least considered adoption, knowing now that having a child isn't just about companionship, it's about creating a safety net, a sense of continuity. Some might argue that having children doesn't guarantee support in old age, and that's true. But children are like a nuclear deterrent. You may never call on them, but their presence alone can make all the difference. In nursing homes, the disparity in treatment between those with children and those without is glaringly obvious. Knowing this, I urge younger people, don't let the fleeting comforts of a child-free life cloud your judgment about the future. A successful career, a generous pension, or a well-funded savings account may provide material comfort, but they can't replace the emotional security of the family. Find a partner, have children if you can, and nurture those relationships. Don't wait until you're old, sitting alone in a nursing home, to realize what you're missing. A 79-year-old woman's honest take on hiring a caregiver. It has taken me half a year to fully grasp the reality of what I can truly rely on in my old age, and the lessons have been humbling yet profoundly eye-opening. My name is Wu, and I live in Dalian. I am 79 years old. Life has been a journey full of twists and turns, marked by moments of joy, growth, and inevitable change. I spent decades working as a doctor, pouring my heart into a profession that gave me immense pride and purpose. Now, I have been retired for 24 years, a fact that sometimes feels surreal. Initially, my pension wasn't much, and I worried about how my husband and I would manage, but over the years, it has increased to 7,000 yuan a month. For a modest life in my twilight years, this amount is sufficient to keep me comfortable and at ease. My husband and I shared a beautiful partnership, one that began through the gentle matchmaking of a colleague. I remember the first time I met him, a diligent, thoughtful man whose quiet strength impressed me both at work and in daily life. Marrying him was one of the best decisions I ever made. Throughout our decades together, we navigated life's ups and downs with open communication, mutual respect, and surprisingly few arguments. I always felt cherished, and I hope he felt the same. Together, we built a stable and loving home, raising 2 sons who were our pride and joy. Looking back, I'm grateful for the life we were able to provide for our children. Both my husband and I had steady jobs, and though we were not wealthy, we lived comfortably. We made it a point to treat our sons equally, fostering a bond between them that warms my heart even now. After they grew up and started their own families, they made it a habit to visit us together. Those moments when the house was filled with laughter and the chatter of my grandchildren remain some of my happiest memories. I also took it upon myself to help with raising my grandchildren. I won't lie, it was exhausting. There were days I felt like my body and spirit were stretched thin, but seeing those little ones grow up, take their first steps, and head off to school made every sacrifice worthwhile. When they no longer needed my constant care, my husband and I finally had the freedom to enjoy our own time. For a while, traveling became our newfound joy. We explored beautiful places, shared countless laughs with friends, and made memories I'll treasure forever. However, as the years caught up with us, even traveling began to feel like more of a chore than a pleasure. Recovery times stretched longer, and the excitement of new destinations didn't quite compare to the simple joys of our daily routines. Yet, we found happiness in the little things, chatting with neighbors, taking gentle walks, or simply sitting together in comfortable silence. Reflecting on all these years, I've learned that while family, friends, and past achievements bring comfort, true reliance in old age ultimately lies in oneself. Hiring a caregiver has taught me that no matter how much love surrounds you, independence and self-care are vital. As much as I love my family, they have their own lives and challenges, and I don't want to become a burden. It's a bittersweet realization, but it brings peace. This stage of life has shown me the beauty of accepting change, cherishing memories, and embracing the present moment. The journey isn't always easy, but it's undeniably rich with lessons that continue to shape me every single day. 2 years ago, my husband's health began to decline rapidly, and he fell ill more frequently than ever before. Watching him struggle broke my heart. As an elderly couple, I found myself unable to care for him properly, and every small task felt like an insurmountable mountain. We were at a crossroads. We didn't want to impose on our sons, who had their own busy lives, yet we desperately needed help. After much deliberation, we decided to hire a caregiver, a decision that felt both necessary and humbling. We found a woman named Shirao Song and agreed to pay her 7,000 yuan a month, which equaled my entire pension. From the very beginning, she proved to be an angel in disguise, diligent, attentive, and incredibly capable. She seamlessly took over household chores, handling everything with such grace that I barely had to give her any instructions. For the first time in years, I felt the weight of household responsibilities lift from my shoulders. She created an atmosphere of comfort and ease in our home, something I will never forget. One day, during one of our afternoon walks, tragedy almost struck. My husband suddenly collapsed. I was paralyzed with fear and helplessness. I couldn't lift him or even think clearly at that moment. But then, as if guided by some divine intervention, Shirao Song appeared. She had grown worried when we didn't return as expected and came looking for us. Her quick thinking and calm demeanor saved his life. She managed to get him to the hospital in time, and the doctor later told us that any further delay might have been fatal. I was overwhelmed with gratitude and gave her a 2,000 yuan bonus as a small token of appreciation. Her genuine happiness upon receiving it warmed my heart. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. From that point forward, we began treating her like family. She started accompanying us on outings, and we trusted her implicitly. My sons, who visited us weekly, often brought more food than we could consume, and I encouraged Song to take some home during the holidays. I even gave her small gifts and additional bonuses, thinking it was the least I could do to show my gratitude. However, life often has a way of teaching us lessons we don't anticipate. Over time, I noticed small items disappearing from the house, things I initially brushed off as misplaced or forgotten. But then came the breaking point. A necklace my husband had gifted me, one of my most treasured possessions, went missing. I confronted her directly, but she vehemently denied taking it. Torn between doubt and trust, I decided to check her room while she was out. To my dismay, I found the necklace hidden in her luggage. My heart sank. I felt not only betrayed but also foolish for placing such unwavering trust in her. When I confronted her again, she begged for forgiveness and promised to change. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't an isolated incident. With a heavy heart, I let her go. What followed was an exhausting and disappointing search for a replacement caregiver. None of the candidates matched her competence or dedication. After months of frustration, we decided to stop looking altogether. My husband and I discussed the possibility of moving to a nursing home, but the thought of leaving the comfort and familiarity of our home was unbearable. In the end, we decided to turn to our sons for help, a decision that felt bittersweet. I didn't want to burden them, but I also realized that they were the only people I could truly trust. We called both sons and their wives for a family meeting. I explained our situation and proposed paying 3,000 yuan for living expenses and 5,000 yuan as a hardship allowance each month to the family that would take us in. I was nervous about how they would react. To my relief and gratitude, my younger daughter-in-law immediately offered to care for us, expressing her thanks for all the support we had given them over the years. My older son and his wife, who were nearing retirement, also pledged to help when needed, especially once they had more free time. Moved by their love and willingness, we moved in with our younger son's family. My daughter-in-law even quit her job to care for us full-time, a sacrifice that filled me with both admiration and guilt. Life with them has been nothing short of joyful. Both sons and their wives visit often, bringing gifts and sharing laughter. Our weekly family dinners have become a cherished tradition, a time when we feel the warmth and love of being surrounded by those who truly care. This entire journey, though fraught with challenges and heartbreak, has taught me an invaluable lesson. In old age, there is no greater reliance than the love and support of your children. Their kindness and filial piety have given us a life of comfort and dignity, and for that, I am endlessly grateful. Sometimes, it's in our most vulnerable moments that we discover the true depth of family bonds. In life, we face challenges that test our trust, resilience, and the strength of family bonds. From this story, we've seen how important it is to navigate old age with grace, to cherish the love and support of family, and to make decisions that preserve dignity and peace of mind. What about you? What lessons have you learned from this journey? Is there one thing from this story that resonates with you? Something you'll take to heart or apply in your own life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you've learned and how you plan to put it into practice. Let's continue the conversation and inspire one another to live with intention, wisdom, and gratitude. If you like this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more heartfelt stories and valuable life lessons. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.